Hey everyone, how's it going? I want to reinstate my Friday Reads videos. I'm gonna just do a bit of a truncated version of Friday Reads where I just talk about what I'm gonna be reading that weekend and the next week a little bit. And don't go too much at length because a lot of them will be books that I make book talk videos about or that I talk about in my 4 favorites of January video. But some of them I won't end up talking about in those videos, and so I wanted a chance to talk about those books that I might be missing out on talking to people about. Also I just miss doing more casual sort of Friday Read / wrap-up videos because I enjoy watching those and I enjoy making them. So anyway, so I will just get to the first book, which is A Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold, which was published in 1948, and this is sort of a collection of essays or musings just on nature and humans' relationship with nature, and it's divided into 3 sections, with the first section being a sort of trot through 1 year in a place that he calls Sand County, which is just a region in Wisconsin where he had a cabin. He just describes the nature there, basically, and the yearly cycles in really nice poetic prose. And then the second section I haven't gotten to yet, but I think it's less focused on a year's span and he more travels around the space of the region and talks about each individual part of it. And then in the last section, the third section, I think is a more philosophical section where he talks about his sort of philosophy of conservation. So yeah, I will be getting through this. I'm about almost 90 pages in and liking it so far. Next is The History of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. This is obviously a classic. Not the type of classic that's usually talked about on BookTube, but you know, it's been read throughout history. Reportedly very readable, and so far I would agree. Although it does require a lot of footnotes. This edition has a lot of footnotes on every page. I'm not sure if you can even see that, but yeah, every page has footnotes because sometimes Thucydides does make allusions to events or ideas that you might not quite be familiar with. And yeah, this is the history between the war between Athens and Sparta in ancient Greece. And yeah, I'm super interested to read it. It has supposed to have a lot of insights into war and you know, human depravity that are still sadly relevant today. So yeah, these are probably the 2 primary books I'll be working on this weekend and until I finish them. Next are sort of a pairing of books. I sort of requested both of them on a whim from my library. The first is American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin by Terrence, which is a book of sonnets that the postmodern poetry prognosticator did a review of, and his video about it got me very interested. I'll leave a link to his video. These are a bunch of sonnets about racism, essentially, and just racism in modern America. And yeah, I read the first 5 or 6 and really liked them. So yeah, I might do one of my poem readings of one of these poems. But yeah, and yeah, I'm finding it thought-provoking as well so far, as well as obviously poetic. And then the next, to stick with the poetry, is The Long Take, a noir narrative by Robertson, which I made the rounds on BookTube last year, I know, because it was on the Booker Prize shortlist. It's a novel in verse about a sort of an alcoholic war veteran with PTSD who sort of goes traveling through a bunch of American cities because he's unable to sort of find peace after his trauma in World War II. So I'm really interested in this just because it's a novel in verse, and I read the first stanza and thought it was amazing. So I'm looking forward to this. And I'm not sure I'm going to make a video about it, but I don't know. I'm really excited to read this. And then all the rest of the books I have here actually are all poetry. So the next is New and Collected Poems by Marianne Moore. I will not be reading this whole thing. I will just be sort of picking and choosing where I go, reading poems that strike my fancy, but I reread Marianne Moore's The Fish earlier this year and loved it. I just loved the imagery and the the sort of hypnotic language, which reminded me a lot of Elizabeth Bishop. So yeah, and I've just been reading some of her poems this week as well and really liking them. And then the next one, the Poems of T.S. Eliot, Volume 1. This is actually mostly, so there's a ton of commentary in here. Let's see, only about that much is poetry, and that whole chunk there is commentary. And most of the commentary is all the references that T.S. Eliot makes throughout his poetry, because, you know, his poetry is kind of an exercise in just how many different works of literature can you reference per, you know, verse. And then I also have my own little volume of T.S. Eliot, because when I find comments in the commentary that I want to keep, I will mark them off in this book. And the last two, the first one, a slim volume of poetry by Joy Harjo. Joy Harjo is a Muskogee poet, which I think is just an alternate term for the Creek Nation. And yeah, this is a collection of poems of hers from 2000. I first experienced Joy Harjo in the last book I'm going to read, which is 20th century Native American poetry, which I have read this whole thing before, but I just want to dip into it some more. Crystal of Biblioatlas and I had a really nice conversation about Native American literature and just the condition of Native Americans and things of that sort in modern day Canada and the United States, and it got me interested in just revisiting some of these poems. And I love a lot of the poems in here. As you can see, I marked off a lot of them, so yeah, I'll be reading that well. But the poems in here are much older than the poems by Joy Harjo that are in here, so it's a bit newer, so it's different, and it also has prose pieces in it as well. And they're kind of, my impression so far is that they're sort of autobiographical sketches or like essays, but they often talk about her experience as a Native American woman and as a woman, and just about violence and human suffering and things of that sort. Yeah, that is sorry, I was just looking. I saw the T.S. Eliot volume on the floor, and I thought that I'd missed a book, but no. Yeah, so that is what I'm going to be reading this weekend and in the upcoming week. This has been my second week back at school, and so far it's looking to be a busy but doable semester, I think. I have a few different research projects that I'm going to be working on. I have to finish writing a paper on Monday, because it's due on Tuesday, a paper that's going to get published. I'm going to be doing analysis and writing up another paper with my advisor, and then I have a couple other research projects that I'm going to be getting off the ground, some studies where I'll be running participants. But yeah, so far, I just thought I'd share this with you guys because I'm liking it so far. So I have instituted a new rule for myself where I cannot watch any booktube until after 8 p.m. So when I get home at around 3:34 because I arrive on campus to start doing work at 7 and I stay till 3, so it's like a 8-hour-a-day job. So I get home at like 3:34, and I can't watch any booktube until 8, so I spend all that time reading. And if the first 2 weeks of classes are any indication of how this is going to work, it's going to make the amount I get read while I'm in school, it's going to skyrocket, because before it had been hard for me to get as much reading done while I was in classes as when I was on break, just because obviously a lot of my time is taken up. But now I think I can read at least a solid 50 pages a day, which I used to not be able to do. I used to only be able to do maybe 20-25 pages, maybe 30 at the most. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the semester, and anyway, I'm looking forward to reading these books. As always, if anyone has any thoughts on any of the books that I have presented here, then I would be happy to hear. Yeah, anyway, so that is my Friday reads. I hope I didn't talk too fast. I feel like I was talking fast the whole time, but my goal was to try to do it all in one take, because that's another thing I miss, doing one-take videos. They're kind of fun, yeah, anyway, it's kind of an art form in itself, I guess, the one-take video. But yeah, so, anyway, I will talk to you all tomorrow, probably, because I'm making a video tomorrow. So, yeah, see ya.